While it can be invigorating to go it alone, solo tourists should consider a range of factors when carefully selecting their next adventure. In this video, we will check out the top 10 rudest countries in the world. Number 10. Turkey, with 2.15% of votes, is the 10th rudest country in the world. At the 10th position, we find Turkey. The survey carried out by the flight comparison site received 1,200 responses, and 2.15% of these saw Turkey as an inhospitable country. Turkish people are some kind of impatient. On the other hand, if you compared them with other European nations, you would think that Turks are rude and impolite and not gentle in some way. The population is 75 million, and at least 10% of them are educated, university. It means there are 7 million university-graduated people that live there. I know education's not enough for being nice and gentle, but it is a really important thing to civilization. And I'm sure millions of people who are uneducated are nice and kind. So we have a number of which is bigger than most of the country's populations in the world. Nice and gentle people living in Turkey. Maybe you have a bad experience with rude people and have some stories. Number 9, Italy, with 2.24% of votes, is the 9th rudest country in the world. Indeed, Italy and Poland, in 8th position, had the same percentage of negative votes. However, for patriotic spirit and national pride, we decided to reward our nation by placing it in 9th place. So according to the logic of the rankings, we are a little less rude than the Poles. Number 8, Poland, with 2.24% of votes, is the 8th rudest country in the world. We don't want the Poles. As anticipated, they are in 8th place. Also there, Poland, it was cited among the nations with the least polite people. But mind you, this is not a good reason to give up visiting it. In Poland, and especially in Warsaw, drivers are quite often aggressive and show a lack of respect towards other drivers. They are rarely so kind to let you overtake them or let you in when you're trying to join the traffic. Number 7, Spain, with 3.15% of votes, is the 7th rudest country in the world. As far as the Spanish, I'm sorry to see them in the rankings. They are a people with typical Mediterranean features, generally kind and sunny. Spaniards are a bit like Southern Italians. People are not exactly the best in education, and they need to get to know each other a little before revealing their absolutely helpful character. Number 6, the U.S., with 3.39% of votes, is the 6th rudest country in the world. The USA remains out of the top 5, and this, in my opinion, is a surprise. When they travel the world, Americans always manage to be recognized for their excessive vivacity and for their generosity. When they receive tourists, however, they are not very tolerant and decidedly grumpy. The self-declared rudest state in America is Rhode Island, where 42% say they believe people in their state tend to be more rude than most Americans. Just 9% of Rhode Island's residents say they think their population is unusually polite. Residents of several other northeastern states also tend to think the people who live there are exceptionally rude. Rhode Island's neighboring state of Massachusetts fares poorly. 40% of the people who live there say they think people in this state tend to be massholes. That is to say, more rude than most Americans. In New Jersey, 34%, and New York, 30%. About 1/3 think their state is meaner than most. Number 5, China, with 4.3% of votes, is the 5th rudest country in the world. The 5th position belongs to China. It is a country rich in traditions, with over 5,000 years of history behind it, but with abysmal cultural differences compared to Western countries. The Chinese are not very hospitable to foreigners and have a suspicious attitude towards those who speak their language in an approximate way. The Chinese government has recognized this problem themselves. In a bold move to crack down on rude China tourists, The officials have begun adding the names of the above offenders to a new blacklist which may affect their freedom to travel. Many Chinese nationals also frown upon the bad behavior of their fellow countrymen. The topic has been a big hit on China's social media, where bloggers discuss and criticize the uncivilized behavior of other Chinese tourists. Number 4, Germany, with 9.93% of votes, is the 4th rudest country in the world. Wooden medal to the Germany. It's amazing how historically the Krauts manage to attract the antipathies of the whole world. They are flawless travelers when visiting other countries, but not as polite in hosting foreign tourists. According to the stereotypes, Germans are first to grab the sunbeds and capable of cracking a smile and rarely say thank you. In an attempt to dispel these myths, Germany has launched a series of videos explaining where the misconceptions arise from and how to do business in the country. Germany is the Eurozone's largest economy and the world's second biggest exporter, making it an attractive and important country with which to do business. The Goethe Institute, Germany's cultural promotion body, made a video entitled "Typical German," which claims that a German's tendency to stick to the point of a conversation is rooted in history. Germans are not perceived as friendly towards foreigners. One reason why expats might find it so hard to make friends in Germany could be that the local population is not generally perceived as being very friendly. Only 53% of expats in Germany said that they consider the local residents friendly, compared to 68% globally. In Mexico, 88% of respondents describe the locals as friendly. In addition, more than a quarter of survey's respondents, 26%, think that Germans are not friendly towards foreign residents, compared to 18% globally. Only 52% actually consider the locals friendly to foreigners, compared to 66% globally, and an incredible 90% in Mexico. One Dutch expat living in Dusseldorf commented, "Quite a lot of people are really unfriendly to people who do not speak German or have a non-German appearance. This is reflected in the makeup of expat social circles in Germany. Just 16% said that they are mainly friends with locals, while 45% have a mixed group of friends, and a full 39% said that they are mainly friends with other expats only." One U.S. expat living in Munich said, "It is easy to make expat friends, but hard to make German friends." Another mentioned that it can be a struggle if you do not learn German. Number 3, the United Kingdom, with 10.43% of votes, is the 3rd rudest country in the world. English people, considered among the most rude tourists, they do not seem to have a royal attitude, even when they host foreigners. Not surprisingly, with about 10% of the votes, England is on the 3rd step of the podium. In some parts of the world, they have a reputation for being cold and unfriendly. They're seen as being distant and disinterested. They'll turn their backs on you rather than strike up a conversation. They're generally seen to lack any real personal warmth. The language is full of phrases that convey their value system. "Keep your nose out," "You stay out of my business and I'll stay out of yours," etc. When in public, the British are therefore very reserved. Engaging with strangers in conversation isn't the norm, although this is certainly not the case all over the UK. On public transport, most people read books, look at their phones, or have headphones on. Trying to start a conversation will usually lead to a few pleasant exchanges, but then people just want to get back to being left alone. This is a very individualistic culture. This is just one example of how British privacy curtails what people say, how they say and when they say it. As a foreigner used to open up in friendly discussions with strangers, of course, this can come across as cold. It's not, though. The foreigner has not understood that they were possibly asking prying questions in public. The conversation they are going to get there is very different to that which they would have in a pub later on. Number 2, Russia, with 16.56% of votes, is the 2nd rudest country in the world. In second place is Russia, which received over 16% of negative opinions. Not to justify them, but it is possible that some attitudes may be perceived as rude due to cultural differences. For example, in the Russian language, friendly expressions are not often used, which is why when translating a sentence from Russia into English, it may sound unpolite to an English speaker. Number 1. France, with 19.29% of votes, is the rudest country in the world. It will be a very bad French habit. It will be an absolutely anti-sporting behavior. But when you don't win, you can't help but enjoy the defeats of others. This time, the negative record goes to the cousins, France. Rude and arrogant in the collective imagination, they actually seem to be towards tourists. Pride is a characteristic of Parisians, and they often tend to be as rude to themselves as they are to foreigners. Wanting to break a lance in their favor, it is said that outside of Paris and the big cities in general, people tend to meet nicer people. Do let us know in the comment if you have had a bad experience with any of them. Please subscribe to Travel the World. Thanks for watching.